And yes, it's a big one today. A lot of bang for your buck today. So we had a bit of a competition on stories, and we had a choice between actually three different frescoes, all from Santo Stefano Rotondo in Rome, to choose from. All quite gory, all all not very nice. So this was the first one that you rejected. So this one was pretty much rejected out of hand. I don't know why. I mean, it's not nice, but no, you wanted worse. So this one actually was in a tie break with one that we're going to talk about today. Yes, I think we can all agree that really isn't very nice at all sorts of body parts hanging from trees, and somebody tied between trees that are about to flip apart, which is reminding me just suddenly of a film. Was there not a film? Was it an Indiana film or something? It really affected me as a child. Like strung up between trees, and then the trees were released and they just pulled people apart. Absolutely disgusting. If anyone could remember what film that was, please remind me, and I'll try not to revisit it, I think. So this was a tie-break between, so it was a tie-break between that one and this one, but I've chosen to talk about this one today because, well, A, it is properly disgusting, and B, there's quite a lot to say about it. So what have we got? So we've got, so you sort of read it from front to back, this one, don't you? You don't read it from left to right or right to left. So front to back, you've got three saints. You can just about make out their halos, I think, all lying sort of quite uniformly. It's quite neat. It's very the contrast between the neat rows of bodies and the actual gore that you see and the horror that you see when you properly look at this, I think probably actually adds to the impact. So you've got these three saints who are lying on the ground in front of this tomb, I guess. They are John, Paul and Bibiana. I always want to say Peter, Paul and Mary, but they're not. They're John and Paul and Bibiana. So John and Paul were brothers, and their stories have sort of been over the centuries. That was that was a mixture between over the centuries and apocryphal. Centuries. So over the centuries, the sort of apocrypha has tied in the story with John and Paul to that of Bibiana, but actually, in reality, they didn't have much to do with each other than that they were all martyred at about the same time. And then you've got a dude who is being pulverized by a very heavy rock. Nice, lots of blood coming out there. Yes, his eyes are actually popping out of his head. We will come on to that shortly. And then in the background, you've got even more hideousness. In the background, you've got piles of bodies, cadavers, just lying on top of each other, sort of indiscriminate dead people, and this burning ship it is in the background with what looks like little people on it. And I think the thing in the centre, it's sort of a mast, but obviously it's also kind of in the shape of a cross a little bit. So this burning ship and the bodies. A lot of the frescoes in Santo Stefano Rotondo have quite similar scenes of carnage or genocide, actually, in the backgrounds. And I think this is to kind of say, okay, so yes, you've got the saints and they have been martyred and it's sort of all about them, but don't forget that loads of other Christians also died way back when, in the early days of Christianity. But what, as I mentioned last week, what these frescoes are also trying to do, or the week before last, whenever, what these frescoes are also trying to do is say, yes, but look, the fight isn't yet over. So they're propaganda, because they were all painted in 1583, 4, around about that time, or actually 82 anyway, so the 1580s, end of the 16th century, when the Counter-Reformation was raging. And during the Counter-Reformation, loads of Jesuit missionaries, so Catholic missionaries, were heading up north to try and persuade the Protestants that they really, they were all wrong, and and everyone really needed to come back into the fold of the Catholic Church. And of course, many of those missionaries were also dying. So it's sort of drawing parallels between then and now, as in the 16th century when they were created. So all propaganda, because of course, if it was a worthy cause. So if you died for this cause, like these people, like the martyrs, then you were absolutely assured your place in heaven. At the end of this fresco cycle, I will try and show it at some point, but I haven't actually got a great image at the moment. I'm still looking. Is an image that we call a sacred conversation, a sacra conversazione, which is it's basically when all saints, no matter when they were martyred, are all depicted in the same image. So it kind of doesn't take any account of time or anything like that. It's just that they're all bundled together and all kind of interacting with each other, or not, as the case may be. So propaganda, that's what these are all about. But you came here for gore, not to learn about propaganda. So let's have a look at these chaps, shall we? So first of all, Peter and Paul. So they are the two saints in the foreground. Brothers. And they first served under the reign of Emperor Constantine. Now, you may or may not know that Emperor Constantine was the first Christian emperor. So happy days for them. They were very close to him because they served in his daughter's house. So his daughter was called Constance. Unfortunately, both Constance and Constantine died, and a new emperor was elected, and that was Emperor Julian, who became known as Julian the Apostate. So I think it's very clear that he was not Christian. He went back to the pagan ways, and he wasn't very keen at all on Christians and kept killing them. But John and Paul were great soldiers. They served. They did a great job in the house of Constance. And so Julian said, come back and work for me. You're great at what you do. Really don't like your religion, but you're brilliant. And they said, no, thank you very much. Actually, you're all right, mate, but we don't want to work for a pagan emperor. So obviously he doesn't leave it, does he? He doesn't just go, do you know what, live and let live. Oh, no, not at all. He sends a henchman around to kill both John and Paul. And the story goes is that this henchman executioner kills them both in private in their garden, because they're very popular members of the, of society, not a difficult word, and of the community. That's actually what I was trying to say. And knew that they would be missed, so didn't want to kind of cause a furore by killing them in public. So chops their head off, buries them in their garden. There's a bit of that going on this week, I'm afraid. And then spreads the rumour. So then Emperor Julian spreads the rumour that they've both been exiled. No, they definitely haven't had their heads chopped off. They've been exiled. So this actually doesn't go very well, because every time this lie is propagated, the person telling the lie, gets possessed by the devil, which isn't a nice thing to happen to you. And then eventually the executioner's son is possessed by the devil. And the executioner is absolutely beside himself, and he goes to the place of the execution. So he goes to their garden, John and Paul's garden, St. John and St. Paul's garden, and he sort of hears voices, as happens in these situations, and the voices say, go and get baptized, and your son will be released from possession by the devil. And he thinks, actually, these are pretty strong, powerful forces. I quite like this Christianity lark. This is working for me. And so he does, and he converts to Christianity, and his son is all fine and dandy, and he wrote this story. So that's how we know, through this executioner, about the deaths of John and Paul. Now, you might be sitting at home thinking, yeah, but hang on a minute, they've still got their heads. But have a really close look at this image, because they haven't. It's in the detail, but look, actually, the front two figures, their heads have both been chopped off. So no heads on John and Paul. Nice! So then we've got Bibiana. Here she is. Here's Bibiana, looking a little bit battered, not quite as battered as the guy above her, who we'll come on to. Now, Bibiana, there are two stories about Bibiana. So Bibiana, basically, in all the stories, she was born into a Christian family. And in all of the stories, she is also persecuted under the reign, or during the reign, of Emperor Julian. So in the first story, basically, she is living with her parents and her sister. Her father gets exiled because he's a Christian. Her mother and her sister die immediately of grief, natural causes. Bibiana, she's a tough young lady, so she lives, and is then tortured. Poor thing. Hang on. So her sister and her mum have died. She buries them in her house under the floorboards or something. I don't know. She buries them in her house, and then the powers that were caught up with her, and they tortured her, and eventually she died and was buried then by a gentleman called John. So perhaps this is St. John, with her mother and sister under the floorboards of her house. So her house, actually, there is, and a house eventually became a church, and you can visit. So unsurprisingly, it's the Church of Bibiana, so you can still visit the Church of Bibiana in Rome today. The other version of the story, her father is exiled and her mum dies, but she is left with her sister in this house. And they refuse to worship pagan gods. They refuse to relinquish their religion, absolutely point blank. So everything is taken away from them. So they don't have any food, they don't have any possessions, they have absolutely nothing at all. And the governor of Rome is thinking, yeah, I'm going to get these two pious young ladies. Ha ha ha. But he doesn't, because they basically are able to just live on fresh air, basically. So all they do is they sit and they fast and they pray, and he gets really, really pissed off because nothing seems to affect them. And so they are summoned to see the governor of Rome. Bibiana's sister, at this point, she dies at his feet, apparently. So she's maybe not doing quite so well, or she's overcome with, I don't know, with something else. So she dies. Poor Bibiana, once again, she is the one who is subject to torture. This time, it gets even worse. So this time, she is kind of held captive by this horrible woman called Rufina, who tries, it says first of all by persuasion and then by force, to make Bibiana lose her virginity. Now, I kind of don't really want to think too much about that, to be honest. But Bibiana doesn't give in, so she doesn't lose her virginity. So she dies apparently a virgin, which actually I thought wasn't allowed. So you hear all these stories, and on all these poor young ladies, they're taken, all the poor martyrs, and before they're actually martyred and then subject to torture, they're always taken to a brothel first. That's so that they don't then, you can't kill a virgin, basically. But anyway, so Bibiana, according to this story, manages to retain her virginity, at which point this old woman, and by the way, and I don't know whether, with the seduction, I don't know whether, in the story that I read, it was a little bit unclear as to whether the woman was trying to seduce her, like as in, woman seduction. I don't need to explain, I think. When you start saying something, you think, yeah, shut up. Or whether she was kind of offering her to other men. Or trying to persuade her to sleep with men. I don't know. Anyway, what ends up happening is that poor Bibiana is tied to a post and flogged until she then, unsurprisingly, passes away, poor thing. But all the stories say that she died with a smile on her face. So, controversially, I'm just going to say, here we have a girl who has buried her mum and her sister under the floorboards. Okay, I'm twisting it a little bit, different context, twisting it, and then has enjoyed being flogged so much that she smiles. I don't think that's the point of the story. I think the point of the story is that she's sent heavenly grace to protect her. So she dies, and then she's left to be ravaged by wild animals, but they, of course, do not touch her because here she is, intact, maybe with a few flog marks around her face and neck, and so she was then eventually buried once again with her sister. So that's Bibiana. That's quite a story. Who is the guy who I'm calling Popeye? I know that's a bit wrong, but I'm calling him Popeye. Well, he actually has absolutely nothing really to do with any of the saints that I've just spoken about. He was a Roman soldier called Artemius, or however you want to say it, who was a Christian, and he was actually renowned for curing maladies, particularly maladies of the spine and of the testicles. Great guy to know. And he obviously was martyred also during the time of Julian the Apostate. And so here he is getting crushed by this. You can see it. So that's a close-up, but you can see the rock here better. So there you go. Here he is getting crushed by this huge rock, so that his eyes actually pop out of his head, which is why I call him Popeye. Let's go back to the close-up. And his bowels are also spewing out. I mean, actually, so then you can't see his bowels. You can see his. Oh, there we go. Let's do that one. So then his bowels are also spilling out. There's a lot of blood, isn't there? I mean, it's absolutely disgusting. What did he do to deserve that? Well, I don't think he really did very much to deserve that. I think basically, again, what this is this really, truly visceral, disgusting bit of gore. I think this is once again all in the name of propaganda. I mean, it's really bringing it into our faces. He was kind of one of the masses. I think he became a saint. Actually, yes, he did, because look, he's got a little halo. but it's bringing an immediacy to the whole fresco. So it's not just these piles of indiscriminate bodies at the back who are, that are demonstrative, or that are showing all the suffering and all the genocide that has taken place. Here he is, very, very dead, or at least I really hope he is dead. And reminding all of the missionaries that they too can get crushed by a rock in the name of the Catholic faith, but then they will be worshipped as a martyr in heaven. Fancy it? Would that make you go off and head up to, I don't know, the Netherlands or Germany or something to preach Catholicism? Well, you'd be surprised how many people actually were influenced by this. Loads of them. They used to come and they used to look at these frescoes and they used to flagellate themselves. There is a story that one person actually died doing so, and then they would head off spreading the Catholic word. Not for me. Thank you very much. On that note, let us stop sharing. I'm going to turn comments back on. And I hope you enjoyed that bit of gore. There we go. Have a great weekend, everybody. And I will see you next Thursday. You've already seen, perhaps, if you've been looking, that I've got gift vouchers on sale. So if you are looking for a gift for somebody and don't know what to buy them, then how about a Beyond the Palette gift voucher? I've got 4 tours lined up for January, February, March and April. So yeah, there we go. So Elevenses, and I've solved all of your Christmas present problems. Hurrah! Great weekend. Thanks very much for joining. See you soon. Enjoy the sunshine. Bye. Bye.